It's notorious, right? Like, everyone's talked about Mother 3. I don't know a single time Nintendo has announced anything and people haven't immediately brought up Mother 3. So the fact that they haven't released it is ridiculous.
I would love to see Mother 3 come to the West officially, just because I'm upset that it hasn't.
I want people to.
One of the best Nintendo games ever made is illegal to play. This is the story of Mother 3. There's a chance you've probably seen these guys while playing Smash and thought to yourself, where the f*** are these guys from? You're so uncultured, or you probably go outside or have a girlfriend. Ooh, look at me, I have sex. Well, you don't even know that these guys are from the Mother series, so who's the real loser here? Mother is an RPG series developed in Japan in 1989. It consists of 3 games spanning the NES, SNES, and the Game Boy. Mother set itself apart with its unique setting and approach to storytelling. Players traded in the grand castles and mythical weapons of traditional RPGs in exchange for rural America and everyday objects turned weapons. Who needs knights and dragons? We have Wyoming. Mother was released in Japan to huge success. It was clear a localization for the US would be in the works. Renamed Earthbound, the American localization of the game was complete and ready to ship in the fall of 1991. However, the West would not see Earthbound come to market, at least for now, as the game was deemed unprofitable and canceled despite it being fully complete. The SNES had already been released at this point, and Nintendo believed a game developed for the NES would be doomed to fail. However, over 20 years later, fans would finally get an official English version of Mother for the Wii U Virtual Console. The 10 people that actually own a Wii U are probably going crazy. So let's skip ahead to 1995. Mother 2 is released in Japan, and again, it's a huge success. However, Earthbound this time, it would reach America. After all their hard work, they were ready to finally launch their masterpiece in the massive American gaming market, with the expectations of selling millions of copies. And it sold horribly. Nintendo overestimated the RPG market in the US. At this point, the genre was pretty niche. Nintendo was banking on the modern setting of the game to draw more players into the genre, but at this time there was a growing focus on graphics and mature art styles, and Earthbound kind of started to look less of a major leap in gaming and more of just a slightly evolved NES game. Not to mention the abysmal ad campaign. I don't know whose idea this was. Like, it literally says the game stinks on the advertisement. The game came with 6 scratch and sniff cards.
No, I'm spelling his penis.
With varying smells from bananas to pizza, and then Carbon Dog, which fans said smelled like a skunk on fire. It's not exactly the smell you want to put in your players' noses. There was one mystery scent where you could send Nintendo your guess of what it was, and if you got it right, they'd send you a prize. The mystery scent was pizza, and if you guessed it right, they actually sent you a pizza air freshener. Okay, I admit it was really creative. If I was a kid at that time, I would have ate that shit up. Alright, I'm not gonna lie. Including all these extras with the game means it couldn't be sold as cheap as the other games that were out. It came packed with a player's guide as well, meaning they had to hike the price up to $70. Well, let's remember, this is 1995. If we adjust that for inflation, that's a fat $125. The game would see a cult following develop, but at the time of release, it was considered a flop.
Ness is in trouble. To help him, all he needs is your credit card number.
Now we come to the holy grail of Game Boy games. That's So Raven. Mother 3 really is a special game. It provides the player with one of the most emotional, thought-provoking, and shocking stories that you'll ever experience from a Game Boy game. And it's all neatly wrapped up in the charm and the humor that fans have come to expect from the Mother series. And to think this masterpiece almost never saw the light of day. Totaling more than 12 years in the making, Mother 3 even releasing truly was a miracle. The game was originally developed for the N64, specifically with the disk drive in mind, which ended up being a commercial failure and forced the team to develop the game as a traditional N64 cartridge. After some more setbacks, they officially confirmed Mother 3 would be canceled in 2001. And although the team remained optimistic about their vision of a 3D Mother game, the probability of that happening, especially with the upcoming GameCube release, was near zero. A re-release of Mother 1 and 2 was developed for the Game Boy Advance in celebration of the 25th anniversary of the series. They were inspired to finally rework the game for the Game Boy. In April of 2006, Mother 3 was released for the Game Boy Advance to the Japanese audience. The game was an absolute hit, selling over 200,000 copies within the first 3 days. Gaming magazines were giving the game fantastic scores. In short, the game was an instant classic in the RPG genre and gaming as a whole, and gamers around the world couldn't wait to get their hands on a localized copy. A game that had critics raving like Mother 3 did would undoubtedly be released across the world, right? Right? Now let's not forget, this is Nintendo that we're dealing with, right? And we all know what they're best at, is just kicking their fans right in the nuts. So Mother 3 would never release outside of Japan, and Nintendo hasn't given an official reason as to why Mother 3 hasn't been localized, leaving the reason open to speculation. We only have to take a look back at the previous release in the series to get an understanding of what Nintendo may have been thinking. Earthbound released as a critical failure. Yes, it might have amassed a cult following in the time between its release and Mother 3, but was it enough for Nintendo to deem it profitable enough? Apparently not. But on the flip side, even with the failure of the previous entry, surely Nintendo would be willing to take a risk on one of the best games of all time, especially with an RPG market that had grown significantly since the release of Earthbound in 1995. Clearly, there is another concern here. There are plenty of sources that cite the controversial topics and mature subject matter as the reason there isn't an official English version. I mean, let's face it, Nintendo isn't exactly known for releasing mature games. I mean, they barely have any that are rated M. I mean, off the top of my head, we have Bayonetta, Eternal Darkness, Shrek. Despite the colorful, simple presentation, the game deals with some very dark topics, like death, drug use, animal abuse, and suicide, which was a long ways away from the family-friendly titles that Nintendo were kind of known for. Without spoiling too much of the plot, the game's story is kicked off by a tragic death. Personally, I think it's done pretty tastefully. I don't think the game ever really crosses the line into depressing. Side note, this game is an absolute masterpiece, and if you don't like it, you just don't understand it, okay? Don't you dare talk bad about Neil Druckmann, or I will hunt you down, and I will Personally, I think the darker themes of Mother 3 served to enhance its experience, and I don't think it was a major factor in Nintendo's decision. I mean, they have released games with mature themes before, and like I said before, it's done pretty tastefully. It's just enough to get its point across without sending its players into therapy. Another reason a lot of people point to is the legal side of things. Moon Channel has a great video looking at the legal implications of localizing the game. He does a great job of breaking it down and understands this stuff infinitely better than I do. So definitely check that out if you're interested. Link will be in the description. So you might be thinking to yourself, what's the big deal, right? Why are people freaking out about a Game Boy game that was released in 2006? Well, I don't want to give any spoilers away, so I'll try to keep things a little bit broad. But let's start with the story. My God, the story. There haven't been too many other games that has evoked so much emotion from me. Besides The Last of Us 1 and 2, I know I'm a dick rider. I don't care. The TV ad that ran as part of the marketing campaign describes it best. You're going to cry, you're going to laugh, then you'll cry some more, and then you'll laugh again. It really is special. It just has so much charm, and it's so well done. The combat system is pretty much the same as any other turn-based RPG. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it is pretty solid. It's really fun. And just because it's not exactly cutting edge doesn't mean there was no innovation. They implemented audio-based attacks, which means mashing the buttons to the beat of the music allows players to chain together devastating combos. This mechanic is so creative and is so satisfying, and it only helps to highlight the amazing soundtrack. Every track is so beautiful, it adds so much to the overall feel of the game. I just can't express how good it is. If the game doesn't interest you, then please, at the very least, listen to the soundtrack. I promise you won't be disappointed. By now, you're probably foaming at the mouth, wondering, where can I get my hands on this game? Calm down, all right? I'm going to tell you. Come here. I'm going to tell you. You don't. Well, at least not legally. So unless you can learn Japanese, you're going to have to be willing to cross a moral gray area. A fan translation led by Clyde Mandolin would be released in 2008, giving players the ability to experience Mother 3 in English. However, you need a ROM to use it. A ROM, for those who don't know, is a digital version of a video game, which is illegal, kinda. So if you own a legal copy of the game, then you can download a ROM as a backup copy. As long as that ROM isn't distributed or sold by itself, it's completely lawful. Therein lies the problem. The official Mother 3 cartridge is really hard to find in the United States. And when you do find it, the prices are kind of absurd, meaning most people aren't going to have access to an official copy of the game. So downloading a ROM to play it in English would be illegal. Now, realistically, is Nintendo going to break down your door because you downloaded a digital copy of the game? Maybe. I don't know. It's Nintendo. You never know. But that's the story of Mother 3. Fantastic game. Can't really play it in the US. Hopefully Nintendo releases an official version. It's seeming increasingly unlikely that that's going to happen, but we can always hope. I make videos about all kinds of unique, interesting video games. So if that's something that you might be interested in, go check out my other videos. I think you'll probably enjoy those. Now, if you made it this far in the video, I love you so much. You're my favorite person, but that's all I got for you. All right, take care.